check out. This is how you improve your squat and know which squat variation you should choose for you, for your anatomy, for your mechanics. And again, you're gonna get out of nagging pains, improve your performance, build more strength and muscle. Come check it out. All right, check this out. So take today as Coach's Corner. We're gonna go over the squat pattern. Try to keep it as short as possible, but get enough in depth to where it helps you improve your squat. Because the question that comes up a lot of times is not only like, how to squat, the best kind of like cues, coaching cues, mechanics and everything else, but just choosing your variations. One thing that I'll say is this, right? If somebody has anatomy that's, posture, that's wacky, and I'm trying to get them to teach them a back squat, I can have every great coaching cue in the world. It's not going to work because guess what? It would be much better if I gave them a better variation for them, right? Maybe a goblet squat, maybe a double kettlebell squat, and just giving them a better variation. Now I have to cue and coach them less, right? So that's smart coaching. But let's start from the get-go. Like when somebody comes in, or even for you, people are like, hey, how wide, what should my squat stance be? Because everybody has different anatomy, right? So if I did an x-ray of my hips or Trey's hips or somebody else's hips, they would be different, right? Maybe they're retroverted and, your hip bones are out here. If you have shallow hips, like myself, you can get ass to grass, okay, in different positions, to be honest with you, okay? But if you have, I would say, deep hips, you might be able to only get to here and then it's going to be bone on bone, right? So everything's going to look different. Also, something called anthropometry. I know, geeky word. It's the basically science of limb lengths. But imagine like I have actually pretty long femurs and it takes me a pretty far way to get to parallel or below. Some have short ones, right? Some people can stay more upright than others just based off their anatomy. So squats are going to look different, right? There is no one squat that looks the best. Now, first thing that I say when we get clients and we're doing an assessment, say, hey, do a couple different squats to misses, right? If you go close, try get down. And maybe they won't be able to get down that far. Go a little bit wider. Toes out a little bit. How does that feel? Oh, that feels way better. Okay, go even wider. Oh, can't go, right? It's like I'm getting stuck. So we'll find that position that feels the best for them. That's usually the best squat to go with. Now, my girl Waitia, she has very retroverted hips. Her squat right here, okay, pretty damn wide, almost looks like a sumo, toes out. But this is where she can actually go below parallel. Anything closer than that, she will get stuck right here, right? So we'd start there. And that would be like, cool, this is our squat stance. Now, another way to be more precise is do a table scour test, put somebody on the table, right? And measure like where they are, but heel to heel, toe to toe, which are all good and dandy, but it takes longer. And a lot of times you'll kind of get a similar result, right? So now from that's part one. Finding out where we're at. Again, people are going to have mobility restrictions in their ankles. If they do, we tend to go to the wedge, right? To any type of squat wedge that's going to allow us to just be more upright. Remember, a hinge is hingy, right? A squat, we want it to be as squatty as possible, which means as upright as possible, right? If my squat looks like a hinge, we got a problem, right? And so, yeah, we're going to use, like if somebody's got a restriction in their ankles and we go on a wedge and it allows us to be way more upright, hell yeah, we're doing that, right? So just know, picking these things, sure, we'll work on ankle mobility over time, but we're gonna use things to help us to get us a better squat. Now, I'm not gonna say this is a baseline, but people wonder about the back squat. Nothing wrong with it. Love the back squat. Not gonna be a great option for many people because you need good hip mobility, core strength. You need to have good thoracic extension, right? But again, the lower body essentially is going to be a similar position when we think about it, okay? Because on a back squat, we want to try to get the elbows underneath if we can, right? If we have good enough mobility, okay? We want to keep our ribs down because the tendency that happens, I'll show you side view, for most people that are tight, is they're going to be here, right? Super arched. And if I'm super arched, trying to go down into a squat, we're going to have problems, right? I want to be able to have ribs down, nice and tall, spine and ribs down. Okay, and then once I found that stance, I always tend to think like pull yourself down. Now, notice the difference between ribs down versus flared ribs, right? And again, if you're tight, that's what tends to happen on that back squat. So we're going to keep the rib cage down, pack that chin back, right? Soft knees. I tend to coach, I would say, squats with soft knees because I want to get my butt down, not necessarily back. We'll talk about the butt back cue, okay? So boom, down, right? Create space in between my knees for my hips and then drive up, okay? Again, notice I'm not flaring that rib cage. It's down. I'm nice and tall. Brace my abs, soft knees, butt comes down. And then driving back up. One of the big things here is like keeping equally, I would say, feeling your whole foot. You used to be taught, or many people used to be taught, to rip the floor, right? Try to rip the floor apart. Problem with that is that a lot of times you won't equally feel your foot, right? So for many people, they roll to the outside. And I will say, hey, listen, I want you to push to that inside line of your foot, right? Feel your big toe. Feel like it's a tripod foot. Big toe, little toe, heel. It's like a tripod, right? I want to feel every part of that foot as I'm squatting, right? And the reason I say keep soft knees, because I want the soft knees to go forward and then the butt to go down, right? To have I would say, a regular squat. Now, if we're doing a box squat, right? If we're doing a wider sumo base, hips back squat, where we're loading the glutes up more, that's fine. We know the intent of that squat. We're talking about a baseline squat that we teach. Now, like I said, if somebody is has an anterior shift, okay, or anterior orientation, as Mike Robertson would say, and I put the load here, it's going to push me further into that position. So this is where the choices come in, right? We show the back squat, but again, if you're here and I put the load here and it pushes me further forward, and now I try to go back into a squat, we're not going to have a good squat, right? Just like in jiu-jitsu, you have something called position before submission. In lifting, if we don't start with a good position, the rep is not going to be great. So instead of keeping the load here for that person, we can now if I get the load in front, you can kind of see it takes me out of that extension. Now that could be a goblet squat. That could be a double kettlebell squat. That could be a front squat, right? So just, for example, in that space, for many people that we see, front anterior loaded will be better. So now we're getting that load in front. And again, I'm now not extended. My ribs kind of almost are automatically down. Same squat stance. Soft knees, but down. Staying upright, keeping those elbows up. Okay. Again, a variation, right? So the thing about it is that when people say, I want to do something I can load maximally. Okay. Well, a hack squat or a pendulum squat, which I'll show later, you'll be able to load. It's still a squat pattern. You just got a lot of stability you don't have to worry about. You can load the hell out of it, right? So this is where the question becomes, hey, do we want to get better at the squat? Do we want to get better at the back squat? Okay, we're going to practice the back squat, but maybe it's not the best first option, and we'll progress to it, right? Because we need more hip mobility, thoracic mobility, core stability. So for me, if you're training and if you want to get stronger, you're going to pick the option number one that you can do the fastest, right? I can do it with you today, and that might be a goblet squat, right? For instance, a beginner, that's definitely a lot of times what we'll do. We'll do goblet squat. And again, if they're shifting their hip back, they don't have a lot of mobility in their ankles, boom. Now we're here on the wedge, knees forward, weights in front of me, looking great, right? We can teach that fast. If they can progress it a little bit more, okay, well now I might go to the double cadence squat, right? Then we might go to a barbell front squat. From there, we may go to a safety bar squat because now I don't need that shoulder mobility. Matter of fact, we're going to take a little second pause and change the bars, and I'll show you the safety bar squat. So safety bar squat. Here's one I made earlier, right? Now, the reason why we love this one is because for anybody that has, and many people have, a restriction in their shoulder, right? Their shoulder mobility to get into external rotation, to get thoracic extension. And now we don't have to worry about that because I can go into a safety squat bar. Bam. No problem with the shoulders. Okay. Now, the other thing that I really like about it is for people that are very extended, I can still reach here, right? I can reach with my hands, bring those ribs down. So yes, we're still loading that spine directly down, but for many people, this is much better variation because now I can, again, keep those ribs down. I can even get a little bit of a row. I'm still reaching forward, getting a row. Much better position. And we can go squat the box. We can go regular squat, right? So it's a great, again, using tools to go like, what is our restriction, okay? Because one person might have perfectly fine hip mobility, or ankle mobility, but their shoulder mobility is not great, right? And then we're using this, and we can start loading this up. By the way, we can also do a Hatfield variation. So imagine having a safety squat bar, but I can now use candles, right? So as I'm going down at the bottom, I can support myself, okay, or even a barbell. Remember, these are all squat variations. It's just a question like, what are we looking to achieve? And what is the end result? And we probably want to improve the squat pattern, right? So if somebody wants to get stronger, hey, you know what? And we're not going to teach that squat to the T. You know, people start getting mad when it's like, hey, belt squat, hack squat, pendulum squat, things that have support. All great variations. Again, it just depends on what we want to achieve. But I still think, you know, again, as a baseline, if somebody was going to come in here and do, for example, a safety bar squat, after we do our dynamic warm-ups, we'd probably do some goblet squats with hip prying, right? So we're still working that squat pattern, coming down, shifting the hips left and right, pushing the knees out a little bit, right? So we might do 2 sets of 8 like that. Then we'd start going to do our ramp up set with the load, right? But remember, the big thing is like, how can I get somebody as squatty as possible? So is this squatty? No, right? Is this squatty? Yes. Is this even more squatty? Again, if we, hell yeah. All right. So again, making that choice based on that. Now I'm going to show you guys in a second, just a couple of different variations, specifically the pendulum squat, because I love it. We have we have a hack squat. We have a belt squat. Some people don't, and that's okay, right? But I wanted to talk about just getting your mind in the position of going, okay, is this the main lift, the strength lift? Are we doing it from, 3 to 6 reps? What are the best options for a 3 to 6 rep range squat? Is it going to be that safety bar squat, front squat, belt squat, pendulum squat? Which one can you do safely with good range of motion right now? Cool, that might be the best option. And then as an accessory lift, maybe you're going to do, to get upper back and core strength better, you may have, or a supplement lift, you may have a double kettlebell squat, right? So again, but a double kettlebell squat, I can tell you it's not great. It's not a great option for a 3 rep, range for pushing strength, because your legs are not going to get, I would say, work the way that you want them to, because your upper back is going to give out, right? Imagine, again, I've done this with really heavy 106 beasts. It's extremely challenging. But again, this is where I would say programming and choice of exercises comes into play. All right, so let's hop over to the pendulum squat. I want to talk a little bit about using machines for squat patterns and how they play them. All right, so this is the pendulum squat. Again, I didn't want to show absolutely every device. You can look up a belt squat, hack squat. Love all those variations. Again, we'll get sometimes folks that, again, we're getting them stronger. We're doing other squat variations, but to load them up, we're going to go on one of these machines. But pendulum squat, different angle. By the way, this is one of my favorite squat variations I've been able to push the hell out of, right? Specifically, this one's Jim Lecco. There's a lot of companies that make good variations. And depending on, for example, if I have really, really good ankle mobility and want it to be a little bit more quad dominant, or should I say more quad dominant, right? Look, my feet are lower on this one. Look how low I can go, right? I mean, this is truly ass to grass, maximal range of motion. So I'm getting, if I want to build strength and muscle building, look at the range of motion I'm getting. There's a lot of variations I can't get that range of motion from, okay? Now I got pretty good ankle mobility. For somebody that doesn't, they might have to go a little bit higher up. The higher up I go, it makes it a little bit more, shifts to the hip. It's still very quad dominant, but it shifts to the hip a little bit more. And notice, the higher up I go, I can't go as deep, okay? Because it's pretty much like if I were to do a more of a hip dominant kind of boxy squat. So again, your choice, right? But if somebody doesn't have range of motion, we can play around with this. The thing about the pendulum squat here is there's nothing that's got, if I give out on it, it's going to be purely because of lack of strength It's not going to be because of low back issues, tightness, hip tightness, right? And so now I can push the hell out of it, right? Again, if for 3 rep, 6 rep, 5 rep, 2 rep max on this, great. If I fail safely. I can literally just sit my butt down, step out of it, right? A lot of variations do that. Now, I'm not saying machines are better than this. No, it just becomes about the person, right? The person and the task at hand, right? We always want to improve people's hip mobility, core stability, ankle mobility, right? We want to do those things. And we'll do that through mobility drills, through breathing drills, through strength training, right? Because we can improve mobility through strength training. But the kicker about it is that, like, do not become dogmatic about, there's mandatory patterns. This is a squat pattern. I've shown you a bunch of different exercises with this squat pattern, right? We can do a single, of course, we didn't even talk about, single leg training, but because we can do a ton of single leg squat variations as well. And there's plenty of squat variations that I have not shown you yet. But my point being is that, number one, find your stance, right? What is your stance? And from once you find your stance, now choose the variation for the task at hand. What can you do safely and also quickly? Because you can work on improving the skill set of a certain pattern. Like, for example, hey, somebody says, I want to power lift eventually, and so I have to get good at the back squat. Okay, but let's choose what's going to be available to you right now, and let's train that hard, and let's build the skill set of improving your back squat, right? But if you push like a round peg through a square hole, which means like, hey, we're going to do a barbell back squat with somebody that does not have the prerequisites to do it, they're going to get beat up, and they're not going to be able to push their training hard enough, right? And to progress, we want you to challenge yourself, have progressive overload, and feel good. Because if, my hip feels like super bad for 2-3 days after I back squat, right? Or my low back, guess what? You're not going to have good results in training. So with that said, make sure you implement some of these, and again, coaching cues and everything else, but philosophies, right, into your training to improve your training. Because the best way to make results is to, guess what? Be able to consistently keep going and not get injured and be able to push yourself. So, tips and tricks in Coach's Corner today. If you want more tips like this to look, feel, improve, and move more like an athlete, perform more like an athlete, make sure to follow this channel.